going on, everybody? It's your boy Itz-Beez-Da TrackStar, and welcome back to Dancehall Masterclass Chapter 5. In this chapter, we're going to cover the topic of sampling and why it's important, So, in the modern dancehall, samples are about 50% of all production in the modern dancehall. Cool, be it splice, be it arcade, be it, just recording some vocals yourself and editing it and all of that, or just downloading kits, or, it's all over the place, you understand? So, in this chapter, we're aim for kind of show different ways to incorporate samples in your production, also different little techniques for, manipulate samples, you understand? Because two people can use the same sample, but get an absolute different result, so we're gonna show different little tactics and how we can do that. So in this first video here, we are gonna just drag in a sample and we're gonna go over some of the many things that you can do from a foundational standpoint, just to get you started, and then as we progress we go through and do more advanced stuff, you understand? So let's get started. So I'm gonna just look for a sample, and don't really matter, just something what sound good to we, don't really matter what it is, as long as it sound good. Alright, cool. So we have two here, right? And ironically, me use these to make a Riddim before. I've already named the section where me use these samples in, but we're not really get into that. So let's just drag these in, and let's drag in the pluck. Cool. So immediately, if we just play now, let's lower the volume by these by about 10 dB. Them probably are loud. And let's copy this and put this on the pluck as well. PS. Yes, and of course, because they are perfect loops, it seems as if there's not a problem. But just looking at it, we can immediately identify a problem, right? Typical dancehall is built in either a 4-bar chorus, 4-bar verse, 4-bar intro, or 8-bar verse, 8-bar intro, 8-bar chorus. Or sometimes you can have a 4-bar chorus and a 8-bar verse. In this situation, we have a much faster tempo. So it's hard to say whether or not loop is a 4-bar loop or an 8-bar loop. Of course, we could count it though. You understand? So we can count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth, and figure that out. But we just approach it as like we don't know what the fuck, to do. We don't know if we count it. So another way, if you are going to use the sample and then you go stick with the same tempo, it's good to then change your tempo to the tempo of the sample, right? So let's right click on 140 and change it to 100. So now we get to come and see that the sample is a 4-bar sample. Cool. So now we have a perfect loop at 4 bars. So now we can do whatever we want to do as far as duplicating this loop however many times, and it will sound perfectly fine because it's a 4-bar loop. But let's say we are work in a, let's say 92 as the tempo, right? So 92 BPM, right? Now all of a sudden the 4-bar loop becomes like a 3 and a almost 3/4 bar loop. It's not a perfect 4 anymore. So how do we then get that to reapply to a 4-bar loop? So simply, you double click on the file, this window will pop up. The first thing you want to do is change the modes, and in the next video I will go into more details about the different modes here, because there's a lot to get into, so I'll just dedicate a whole video to that. So typically what I do is I use auto. And the reason why I use auto is because using another mode, like I said, they have specific ways how they operate, which we'll get into in the next video. But I just use auto because when you use auto, if I were to now stretch this loop, it will automatically, so let's detach this. So if I were to now come into the piano roll and activate stretch right in this top right corner here, firstly you have to select the waveform button. You have waveform, automation, and MIDI. So select the waveform button, press stretch, and then you can just drag the clip and stretch it out. Notice automatically the clip, the waveform changes because it's set to auto. It's automatically basically correcting or calculating the pitch differences and trying to keep the pitch or the sound the exact same way, right? So if I were to put this, let's just go back to default, right? So let's go to none. If I were to put this in resample, and then now if I were to stretch this file, notice that it didn't change, but the sound of the clip will change. Cool. But if I were to put this in auto, auto will try to keep the same pitch. You know, it has a limit, but it will more than likely try to keep the same pitch up to a certain limit. Like you can't just drag it all the way out and expect it to keep the pitch. So if we play it now, it won't sound the same exact way because it's not a 4-bar loop, but it will sound much closer than what it did when it was on resample. You know, of course it's slower. So if we were to put this at 4 bars now, and to easily do this, like the quickest way to do this, you can either zoom in all the way and drag to the line, and you have to zoom in all the way. If you are not, then when you drag, that's what's going to happen. So you zoom in all the way and you can do micro movements. So if we put this at the line, let's turn off the pluck. And remember, we are at 92 BPM, so we slowed the tempo of the track down, but it's much closer to the original because we are in auto. If I were to just switch this to resample, you know, it's like we have a totally different piano. Cool. So the mode is the first step, right? So like I said, auto. Then to easily, like I said, get this to stretch to 4 bars, you can just come to this window, right click on time and press 4 bars. Then it will stretch it out. Auto is enabled, so it will automatically compensate for pitch, and we have a loop. Same thing with the pluck. Change the mode to auto, right click on time and press 4 bars. And notice it auto compensated. Now, if I wanted to change this tempo to, let's say, 102, immediately once I do that, because I am set to auto, FL Studio will ask me, do I want to auto stretch the audio clips? Press yes. It automatically compensates once again. We have no issues. Cool. So let's move this back. As far as time stretching, that is consolidated into this box right here at the top. So you have pitch, you have multiplicator. I am not sure what that does. I have never ever used that, so I'm not going to lie and say I do. In the next video, when I'm going through the modes, I will do some reading and explain what it does and probably do a quick demo of what it does, but I do not use it, so I'm not going to lie and say, hey, it does this. I don't know what it does. Cool. So that's as far as we will cover today, just basically just the basic stuff. Like I said, in the next video we'll go through the modes and, you know, start taking like a more of a deep dive into everything. So until next time, it's your boy Itz-Beez, the TrackStar. Peace.